Meanwhile, the Plateau State Governor Caleb Mufwang has applauded the renewed commitment of security chiefs to tackling security in the state. The governor, who met with a high-powered federal government delegation led by the Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawalle, in Jos, welcomes assurances by security chiefs that they will go after those who killed more than 190 people in Plateau communities on Christmas Eve. The Minister for State for Defense, Bello Matawalle, assures the governor of federal government's commitment towards tackling insecurity in the state. And the Minister for Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Betta Edu, says the government will provide temporary shelter to the victims.
Therefore, what happened on Christmas Day, starting Christmas Eve actually, into Christmas Day, took us by surprise, because they came in from different points we never contemplated. And some people will blame it that there was no intelligence gathering, but I would think that, well, criminals will always be criminals, and they can spring a surprise on you any day. But I want to appreciate the quick response. As soon as we got to know what was happening, there was a quick response, and a lot, it could have been worse. From the intelligence at our disposal, what they wanted to do was to bring down the state. For me as governor, I've had to stay strong because of the people. Because if I show that I'm despondent, the people will also become despondent.
To assure you that on part of the Ministry of Defense and the service chiefs, that we're here to see that ourselves, to make some findings of what exactly happened, the cause.
A humanitarian team to offer humanitarian relief materials to the people of Plateau that are internally displaced and have suffered from different challenges following the incidents that occurred on the 24th of December 2023.
And the senator representing Taraba South at the National Assembly, David Jimcoat, is raising concerns about an impending famine in Nigeria due to the alarming rate of killings of farmers by bandits. Senator Jimcoat, who chairs the Senate Committee on Social Welfare and Poverty Alleviation, says the federal government needs to declare a state of emergency in southern Taraba over insecurity that has claimed the lives of hundreds of farmers. The lawmaker insists that more than 700 of his constituents from farming communities in Usa and Takum local government areas of the state have been killed by bandits within 3 months. He urges security agencies to intervene and wipe out bandits to allow farmers to carry out their farming activities.
From security report, more than 700 people have been killed in those areas. 700. Those are the ones. This is from security. 700. So you know something that will be worried. People have left their farms. They are taking shelter in the primary school. Okay, now if school resume, where are the students going to sit and learn? So it's something that we need to double our effort. In fact, I will urge the state governor is doing much, because we have been visiting all the security, the army headquarters and defense headquarters, but I will urge the federal government and the state government to declare state of emergency on security. Declare state of emergency is needed, because every effort without security, it will be in vain. Responsibility to secure the life and property of our people. It is our responsibility. So I'm calling on the security agencies to do more. We appreciate their presence. We appreciate what they're doing. You can see some of my complaints. I see sometimes they get there after the attack. They should be prompt.
We have deployed our men to cover all the nooks and crannies of Taraba State. We, in conjunction with other sister security agencies, we're going to drive the criminals out of the state. Those who still remain recalcitrant, We'll make sure that they are arrested, prosecuted, and put behind bars.
Okay, let's bring in a Rise News analyst, Associate Professor of Law, Sam Amadi. Very warm welcome to Newsnight. It's the last edition in year 2023. Well, still talking about the sad narratives of the Christmas Eve massacre, genocide. That's what the United Nations has called it. The Pope too has commiserated, with the families and the people. In fact, the people of Nigeria over that death. Is it like a helpless situation? I mean, that Nigerians find themselves over this insecurity? No solution?
It's not helpless, but the government has made it look so. I mean, look at the service chiefs all get there, fine talk. Now, there are three things about this killing. This is not farmer-header conflict. We've seen examples of those involving 3-4 people and they run away, okay? So they're episodic. Conflict arise, and then if people could be killed on both sides. This is planned genocidal attack. The question is, even if we couldn't prevent it, can't we trace these killers? This is perennial. It has happened almost at this time in several years. This is big, huge. The Hungarian president weighed in on it. Several international, including Fox News, international media have also spoken about this. Now the question then is, why can't government really protect these communities? Again, if they don't have access to personal defense, so Nigeria personal possession of firearms is outlawed, except fuel license, maybe sports arms, okay, and a few people who have arms. The communities don't have arms. They are not supposed to have arms. At the same time, the state can't protect them. So imagine 160 killed, children, very gory, murder. I mean, something even maybe worse or close to what happened in Gaza, that the whole world is convulsing around. So the first thing is state responsibility. If you ask me, this is a case for mass class action that asking for the federal government trillions of naira. Why? Because the narrative, the report shows that either lack of commitment, delayed intervention. So the government has to bear responsibility. Is
there conspiracy here? Is there any conspiracy theory?
Yeah, the only argument is that says state, it can only argue two things. One, that there's a state support for state, meaning not the president, state institutions of state, the military, the support for this kind of attack. Because you can't, let me give you an example. We saw attacks in some part of the country where military officers, 1 or 2 people killed, okay? And they will sack the village. We've seen what happened in Zakebo. We saw what happened in Odi years ago. And so how come communities are attacked repeatedly with heavy casualties and we never get to get people arrested?
Look, the retired general officer commanding the 3rd Armored Division in Jos, he said the terrain is too difficult.
So the terrain
is more difficult than the terrain in Afghanistan.
Exactly. So we just so difficult.
So we just
allow them to keep it. So
that's a retired army general saying
for me, the Nigerian state, the Nigerian military institution is responsible. Should be cited for failure to protect, even if we can't say they connived, but the failure to protect all the time. And again, there are anecdotal evidence from locals that when they capture some of these people and hand them over, they are never. So it's part of Nigeria state's religion and ethnicity exceptionalism. That means the Nigerian state cares more about protecting so-called
the state,
not
the people,
and not the people,
not the people,
and they exempt life to protect religion or ethnicity. Why should Nigerian state give so much concession to religious violence?
Yeah.
This attack wears the toga of religious violence, religious killing, ethnic killing. And so across the country, this is now time for the President of Nigeria to establish special council for religious and ethnic violence. This council will have roving powers to prosecute, arrest. You see, the police institution themselves who ought to be doing this, either bureaucratic compromise or lethargy. They don't even move. No prosecution. Think around all the killings across the country. So the question people ask is that, should we not have state police? Should we unlock the power to have arms so that people can defend themselves.
What the questions you're asking or your submissions, some 3-4 years ago, retired Chief of Army Staff General T.Y. Danjuma,
So.
who is from Taraba State. His state is under siege. More than 700 farmers have been killed. Well, they say bandits and the rest. Why will bandits just go after farmers and killing them?
Still what?
And what General T.Y. Danjuma suggested is that, look, people, defend yourselves.
So you have to make it legal by allowing people to carry arms.
And those who carry the arms, they go scot-free. And so why would you now say it should be legal for me or other Nigerians?
So
why?
It was going to, if the state is ineffective, inefficient state, can't protect because the terrain is...
Is it becoming... Look,
yeah.
come, let me ask you. Is it becoming a failure of state here in not protecting its citizens as guaranteed by the Constitution?
In the index of state failure, the primary evidence of state failure is inability to protect the lives of citizens.
And that's what we're saying now.
You can't control, if you say that those terrains are difficult, you are saying that they are ungoverned space. You are saying that you can't control those territory. I mean, which is this territory in Nigeria that's so ungoverned, that so difficult that they can't protect life and property?
That the well-trained Nigerian military cannot secure?
It must be there's a lack of state commitment, because if the state is committed to this, they put the resources, they put everything to ensure that you protect the citizens and punish this aggressor. This is a repeated pattern of strategic attack against communities in this area. And so the idea of difficult terrain doesn't sell. And if it's so difficult, the people should be allowed to hold arms and defend themselves.
But let me ask, so that it does not look as if one is jaundiced about, the killings and the rest. In Sokoto State, we've seen terrorists, bandits, just murdering people at will and the rest. Like, how do we describe that?
Like the lawyers say, mutantis mutandis. It applies the same way. The critical question here is state must protect citizens. And when you see mass attack, mass violence, mass indiscriminate, I mean, we talk about this banditry as if these communities are poor. So you kill people, you don't take goods and services, you don't steal anything from them. So these are targeted strategic attack to kill people. The point is this: you are not a state.
Are these killers? Yes. Are they Nigerians? Are they foreigners?
They ought to be Nigerians or people who are lawfully resident in Nigeria, because if they are foreigners, then it compounds a state failure that people can invade. So it becomes a military invasion. If they are foreigners who are not in Nigeria, either they are Nigerian citizens or lawful residents, in which case it doesn't matter. So the key point here is the government has to say, look, we zero tolerance for community attack. And if you look at the rhetoric post-attack around land ownership, around who owns what, so I think there's a primordial concept here still ongoing about struggle for land and who owns what. And so these attacks look like programmed as assertion of ownership, sovereignty, struggle around identity. And that will make it worse. So it carries a notion of ethnic or cleansing, because it has that non-discriminate, kill children, kill the young ones, scatter everything. That's not a pattern of ordinary banditry or killing. Yeah,
do we learn anything in all of these, particularly when we look maybe about 20 years or more ago and we saw what happened in Rwanda? Rwanda, yes, they've greatly healed and the rest. Where is our own sense of humanity here?
And Rwanda shouldn't happen here, because first, Rwanda had two major ethnic groups fighting. Here, we have multiple, at least at the least count, maybe 300.
Over.
So what that means, therefore, is that the struggle issues here are issues that could be isolated and dealt with easily.
Mundane, you will say?
Well, there are issues around impunity. Some people, the state has got the impression that people can kill and get away with it. I'll give an example. Look at Akaloka, for example. Look at stories that have happened in the past. The question is, those things give a sense of impunity. We must come to a point where we begin to punish, if in fact go back history to collect those in the south, in the east, in the north, in the west, all those killings that are totally extrajudicial, against due process, And once you begin to punish and begin to assert state authority. So state authority is not a case of looking for human rights activists to put behind bars. It's saying that there's authority of law over this territory. You have to battle criminals as criminals, you have to fight them. And so if people wake up in the morning, attack each other and kill hundreds, that's a state of emergency. That should compel a real presidential action. And you begin to see that people are arrested, dealt with, punished, and the people in the community affected will have confidence. I think at this point, really, Nigerian state has gotten away with murder. They have gotten away with so much atrocities because the failure of the Nigerian police, the failure of the Nigerian, look at what happened in Kaduna with the accidental, quote-unquote, killing. We didn't see a proper procedure. You should have had a parliamentary inquest to establish first that it was actually accidental. I think that the Nigerian National Assembly and the government should realize that, look, this notion about human life is not a trifle. It's not something that we fiddle with.
But that's how it's been treated.
That's how it is.
So, I mean, human life, the way it does not matter.
Value. The only people that maybe count are the rich who have. It was the Nigerian businessman from the Southeast who requested for over 20 soldiers from IG, over 18 police officers, DSS, to travel home. So only the rich, the really, really rich
can be
and
secured
powerful are secured.
in Nigeria.
The rest of us, communities, nobody cares about them. And so when they die, even the president has not even come. So there's a sense in which life don't count. And that's really one of the mark of state failure. A state that doesn't care and lacks the capacity, because the story is either we don't care about these lives or we don't have the capacity to protect those lives, in which case, head or tail, we're a failed state. A state that doesn't care about citizens is not a state properly defined. A state that has no capacity to protect citizens is not a state, because the essence of statehood is that monopoly over violence and ability to exert order and discipline across a territory. If a state can lease out some part of his territory to religious fundamentalists and jihadists or criminals of all sorts, or secessionists or whoever, whether they are from the southeast or south or north, if you can comfortably cede territory to them and say it's difficult, they are not a proper state in the modern sense. The idea of statehood is ability to display and exert and establish and execute order and law across their territory. That's what Nigeria is feeling right now.
Thank you so very much, Associate Professor of Law, Arise Analyst, Sam Amadi. Happy New Year in advance.